Do you know how the 1% use debt as a weapon while you use it as a cage? Right now, somewhere in the world, a billionaire is borrowing money. Not because they need it, not because they are broke, because borrowing money is one of the most powerful financial moves on the planet, and they know something about debt that almost nobody ever taught you. The word debt, to most people, feels like a verdict, a punishment, a life sentence handed down by a bank. But to the 1%, debt is not a cage, it is a loaded weapon. And the difference between those two realities is the entire gap between where you are and where they live. Here is exactly how the framework works. Let us start with what debt actually is, stripped of the emotional weight your culture has attached to it. Debt is leverage. That's it. It is a financial tool that amplifies whatever you point it at. If you point it at consumption, it amplifies your losses. If you point it at assets, it amplifies your gains. The tool does not change, only the direction changes, and the 99% have been almost universally taught to point it in the wrong direction. Think about the first time you ever heard the word debt. It probably came paired with fear. Pay it off, avoid it, get out from under it. This is not bad advice in isolation. Consumer debt, credit card debt, debt pointed at things that depreciate is genuinely destructive. But the lesson most people absorb is not just avoid bad debt. The lesson most people absorb is debt is dangerous, full stop. And that blanket belief is exactly what keeps the cage locked. Here is what the 1% were taught instead. There are two categories of debt: dead debt and live debt. Dead debt is borrowed money that buys things that lose value. A car loan, a credit card balance from a vacation, a personal loan for a wedding. These drain your cash flow and leave you with a depreciating asset or nothing at all. Dead debt makes you poorer every month. Live debt is borrowed money deployed into something that generates a return greater than the cost of borrowing. A mortgage on a rental property that cash flows above the interest rate, a business loan that funds an expansion generating 3 times the repayment cost, a line of credit used to acquire an asset that appreciates. Live debt makes you wealthier every month. The 1% use exclusively live debt. The 99% mostly accumulate dead debt and call it normal. Now, let's talk about leverage, because this is the mechanism the ultra-wealthy have used for centuries to compound power without using their own money. Leverage means you control more than you own. You put in 10%, the bank funds the other 90%. You capture 100% of the upside. This is not a loophole. This is how commercial real estate, private equity, and corporate acquisitions work at every level. A property worth $1 million generates cash flow and appreciation on the full $1 million, even if you only put in $100,000 of your own capital. Your return is not calculated on the $1 million. It's calculated on your $100,000. That's a 10 times amplification of your results. The bank does the heavy lifting, you capture the gain. This is why wealthy families do not sell assets to fund their lives. They borrow against them. You have a stock portfolio worth $5 million. You don't sell it, trigger capital gains taxes, and remove it from the compounding engine. You take a securities-backed loan at a low interest rate, use that cash to live or invest, and let the $5 million keep growing. The asset never leaves, the compounding never stops, the tax event never happens. This is called the buy, borrow, die strategy. It's completely legal, it's widely used by the ultra-wealthy, and almost nobody in the 99% has ever heard of it. Meanwhile, the average person is doing the exact opposite. They sell assets to avoid debt. They cash out investments to pay off a credit card. They liquidate the compounding engine to escape the cage. They sacrifice the long game for the short-term relief of a zero balance. And the moment they do, the wealth-building clock resets. The 1% never reset the clock. They refinance, restructure, and redeploy. Always forward, never liquidating what's already working. Let's talk about the psychological trap underneath all of this, because the cage is not just financial, it's neurological. Debt aversion is a documented cognitive bias. Loss aversion, identified by Daniel Kahneman and Tversky, means the human brain experiences the pain of a loss approximately twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
A debt balance, even a productive one, registers in the brain as a loss, as a threat, as something to be eliminated at all costs. This biological alarm system was useful when survival meant escaping predators. It's actively harmful when applied to leveraged asset acquisition. The 1% have, either through education or experience, learned to override this alarm for productive debt. They have trained themselves to evaluate debt not emotionally but mathematically. The only question that matters is this: does the return on this borrowed capital exceed the cost of borrowing it? If the answer is yes, the debt is an asset. If the answer is no, the debt is a liability. That's the entire framework: return versus cost. Everything else is noise. Here's a concrete example of the gap in action. Two people have access to the same $100,000. Person A pays off their mortgage early. They feel incredible: zero debt, total security. Their net worth on paper stays the same, but their cash is now locked in an illiquid asset generating no additional return. Person B takes that same $100,000 and uses it as a down payment on a rental property, generating 8% annual cash-on-cash return. After 1 year, Person B has earned $8,000 in cash flow, plus whatever the property has appreciated, plus the principal paydown from the tenant's rent. Person A has earned nothing new. Same starting capital, completely different outcome. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is the relationship with debt. The cage metaphor is accurate because cages aren't always locked from the outside. Sometimes you're holding the key and have simply been told the door is dangerous. The belief that all debt is bad, that zero debt equals financial safety, that borrowing is a moral failure, these beliefs are the bars of the cage, and they weren't placed there by accident. A financially illiterate population is far easier to manage than one that understands leverage. So, what do you actually do with this? You start by auditing every piece of debt you currently carry and asking one question: is it dead or alive? Dead debt gets eliminated as fast as possible. Live debt gets evaluated, optimized, and potentially scaled. You stop measuring financial health by how much debt you have and start measuring it by what your debt is pointed at. A person with $500,000 in mortgage debt on a portfolio of cash-flowing rental properties is not in a worse position than a person with zero debt and zero assets. They're in a categorically better position. The math is not close. The 1% do not fear debt. They fear dead debt. They feared the cage. But the weapon? The weapon they pick up every single time. The human brain hasn't changed. Your strategy has. You're welcome. Subscribe if you want to optimize your framework. It means a lot.